man. We are here. We are live in the studio. We got Mr. Chuck Nelson here, running for city controller this year. We're gonna have a conversation on the social experiment. Hopefully, everybody can hear us loud and clear. If you're paying attention, please, can we get a some type of notification that you can hear us? We want to make sure this is a good one. How you doing today, though, Chuck?
Hey, I'm having fun.
Good, good, good. So, yeah, like I told you, we're just gonna sit here. We'll have a conversation. We'll talk about, the election. You're running. I'm running. We'll just have different conversations about different topics and just let the conversation flows how it goes. First and foremost, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. It truly means a lot to me. I mean, I tell a lot of people, like, as far as running for city council, like, you were like the main person that's kind of like, yo, Deontay, you can do this. I think you should do this. You sat down with me. We had a couple different meetings where you're like, man, whatever you need to know, I help you. Answer all my phone calls so far. So just like, I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the encouragement. You know what I mean? You pushing me to be like, you can do it, and I got your back. So that's truly appreciated, man. First and foremost, I wanted to tell you thank you for that because I was kind of like on the fence about it, like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And then after having that conversation with you, it was more like the confirmation to do it, and then all of the help along the way has been nothing but good for me. So I appreciate
Thanks. People they tune into our city council meetings. They've seen you light us up a couple times.
you. Yeah, yeah.
That's what, so. I remember the first time I talked to you. It was out in the lobby of City Hall after you lit up city council, and you talked about how we are as leaders on council, and really questioned our capabilities and challenged us as failures. And I think some of the people tried to defend themselves with their words. And then I came out and I was like, you don't know me, and you better start watching. Because I feel confident about my record. I feel confident about what I do. And then the second time I came and did that, I think that's when I was like, hey, maybe that's not so much criticism as it is a call.
Hmm.
And it was, when we started having conversations, it's been fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I appreciate it. So, like, with all of that being said, I guess my first question to you would be like, what made you accept the invitation to come on the show to like to be interested in this conversation?
It's always fun talking to you, man. And it's also the season, but I do this outside of campaign season.
Okay.
Even I think it's a good platform. It's good to be able to engage voters and have an audience. Um, you know, you always gotta be able to answer yourself, and that goes back to our first conversation. When, like, you watch me, like, I'm always comfortable answering.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's definitely something that I've noticed about you. Like, a lot of people like, yeah, Chuck talk a lot about Chuck. And I'm like, listen, man, from what I've learned from Chuck so far, the conversations I've had, like, that dude can just go answer any question that you ask him. I don't see him running or hiding from anything. And I'm always a fan of somebody who's willing to like bring up their statistics and talk about some of the things that they've done because I believe that it's important for us to speak when we're doing good things. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, negativity gets spread regularly, and I never understood why people are opposed to it. So when I started to watch and follow you a little bit more, I'm like, yo, this dude is serious, man. And he's putting in the work. He's got his statistics. He knows what he's talking about. And I don't think I've ever heard you say something that you couldn't stand on, back up, or wasn't aware of, or I've never seen you get to the point to where it became like an argument to where it was just a battle of words with no facts. So like I respect that a lot.
Yeah, with you being in this race right now, I'll tell you one of the things I did a lot because I ran twice.
Mhm.
So I basically had 2 years straight of campaigning. 'Cause I had a good idea that I was going back into. We had appointments that were open. Um, you know, um, there was an appointment for Kaczkowski because he was moving in the treasurer's office, and then one for Bob Murphy.
Okay.
So in both cases, there was 4 opportunities in the course of 2 years for me to be on city council. And not just one, but there's functions for it. And with that, I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of different people that had been on council those times, and I always asked them, like, what did you actually accomplish on council? What was your number one?
Mhm.
Like, and that was always a telling thing for me because, like, as you talk to these guys, some of them come in and they're like, oh, well, I was, and they'll give you something like big, something just vibes, and I'd be like, all right, so accomplish vibes,
Mhm.
like I heard, and that's good. Like, you need some people to be that.
Right.
And then other people come in and they're like, here's what I did.
Mhm.
Ruby, she was a 12-year councilwoman. She ran for mayor 8 years ago. Like, she came in and she's like, we got Walmart.
Mhm.
She's like, we got Broad Street Walmart. I did that. I went to the headquarters, like, and she gave me a list. I was like, damn.
Right.
She's like, this is how many jobs. It's a food desert, like, and she riled that stuff off. I'm like, all right, like, that's legit.
Right.
And I really, I took the time to ask any of the people that I ran into. about that when I was
Okay. I'm glad that you mentioned that. So as far as that, like as far as just people in general, do you think, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that they can ask those type of questions. Like, is it okay for us to be asking people who are running, who are rerunning, and who are sitting in the seat, like, what have you done since you've been in that seat? And they should be able to answer that question.
Oh yeah, that and people that had been in that. I get breakfast with Pat Anthony. He was in there for 33 years. Like he'll tell you stuff he did. Like
Mhm,
I saved the water.
mhm.
Like we were in, like there's all these guys. They got an answer. If they don't have an answer for it, that's a challenge. Like your question.
Right.
And I look at the slate of ordinances that we've done, particularly in the last 2.5 years. I got a little bit of a slow start. We didn't do much for 2 months that I was on. And I can like look at all my colleagues and I can tell you like where they accomplished something.
Okay.
And then that gets measured.
Okay. So so I have a question for you because, like I said, I've been doing some homework and I've been doing some research, but I'm not sure everybody knows this. Like, what is a city controller and what is it? What do you actually? What does that entail?
When you got city council as an elected legislative body, and you got the mayor as the executive body. At some point, there needs to be an arbitrator in there from time to time on numbers, someone that gives them accountability, and that's really the controller's job. The controller is like an independent elected. You don't want to have them answering to the mayor. You don't want to have them answer to the council.
Okay.
You want them independently elected, only answering to the people.
Okay.
And so the city controller's job, it comes down to a couple things. Primarily, responsibilities with pension. There's a capital fund that there's also responsibilities over. There's an annual audit. And then just as a city controller, rather than South County,
Mhm.
he has post-audit ability. City controller has pre-audit ability. So the controller can go in and look at things, before the auditors get them,
Okay.
and bring that to city council's attention. One of the things that drove me to this race, in particular, that I was impressed with.
That was next.
Yeah, no. But is when I was looking for solutions as a council,
Uh,
and I was looking at assessments, data analysts, like I wasn't getting these things from the city. And when I was finding how they were implemented in other cities, I'm seeing controllers
mhm.
audit these programs. I'm seeing controllers offer that input. City councilman, we need information. We got to go to the mayor. And if the mayor doesn't want us to have that information, he can kind of just shrug his shoulders, be like, the staff's busy,
Mm.
like, and we just go without information. The controller can get that information. She should be able to.
Right.
She doesn't really, in this case, like, we're just kind of left without the information.
Right.
And I'm not running against this woman. She's great. I'm fine with her, but I feel like it could be amplified quite a bit. And none of that makes the controller stronger.
Right.
It makes council stronger.
Right.
Council is the governing body of the city. And frankly, I don't think we're strong enough right now.
Okay. Okay. So pretty much like having that city controller to be more solid in their role would be able to assist the city council in making decisions and having an influence on some of the things that are going on, and
Absolutely.
also kind of like check the balances in the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't mean I want to make decisions. I'm not coming in with an agenda being like, here, city council needs to do this.
Right.
I won't be on city council. I won't get to vote anymore.
Right.
I'll just be able to say, okay, here's your information. Make an informed decision.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
my goal.
All right. Yeah, I like that. That's interesting because, like I said, I was flipping through pages and I'm like, oh, okay, this now it's starting to make sense. It's all starting to connect and tie in. Um, so then like, so you said you did one term city council, correct?
Yeah.
And I've heard you say like, I set out everything that I had to do to where like I've done enough. What are some of those things, if you don't mind sharing with us, as far as like what some of the things you've done?
Yeah. So in 2019, when I was first running, I wrote an op-ed. And you should write an op-ed, but don't do what I did. Don't lay out a policy platform. Nobody's gonna give a shit about that.
Mhm.
Mo usually writes about how he used to play in the park and like what neighborhood he grew up in. They like that.
Okay.
So come in as a candidate with that kind of fluff, but like actually have things you get done.
Okay.
So I came in, I wrote this op-ed, and I had 3 things listed, and a 4th one that I didn't. But it was home rule charter, and basically I copied the success of Allentown. I looked and I tried to identify when it is that they had turned,
Okay.
and then basically Allentown and Erie were all in the same decline, and Reading, they were all in the same decline in the same years. And then something changed.
Mhm.
And Allentown and Reading turned around. What made them turn?
Right.
How can we turn? So they did a home rule charter, neighborhood improvement zone, or NIZ.
Okay.
We're doing CRIZ.
Right.
And then the third thing they did was land use reform. So the land use reform is basically a slate of like 15 things I'm trying to do.
Okay.
I've done those.
Okay.
And then we got CRIZ. That was one of the things. I'd either take a NIZ, ideally a NIZ, that was better legislative, but they've only given that to Allentown. CRIZ or TIFs. Like no matter what. It's money up front to these places develop this economic
Okay.
and then home rule charter. It unbinds us from this regressive 1960 Jim Crow era, you know, bad policies
Mhm.
where the suburbs basically take all the control. They restrict what cities do, and so getting us out of that is like first and foremost. It basically drives every single third class city into bankruptcy, and we just barely avoided that.
Right. Right. So, um, yeah, I was doing some homework on the home rule charter thing, and it's very interesting. I'm having some conversations, and people have different perspectives about it. And I know a lot of people, it's fairly new, so a lot of people have a lot of stuff to learn about it. Why is that so, like, why do you feel like that would be the route for us to go?
The thing is, as our current charter goes, if our current charter was perfect, we could do a home rule charter and just copy all the third class city optional strong mayor charter notes.
Okay.
Like we can make our home rule the same as the third class city code if we want.
Okay.
All we are doing with a home rule charter is finding areas we want to improve. Like that's it. Like we're not going to look at the third class. We're going to start with the third class city code. We're going to look at the pros and cons of it, and we're not going to find like the pros of it and be like, let's turn that into a con.
Right.
Right? We're only going to find the areas to improve it.
Right.
So that's really the strong suit of it. Third class city code is very restrictive on some of our revenue stuff.
Mhm.
So it's too much of a burden on property taxes, which those don't grow unless you incrementally like increase taxes every year.
Mhm.
Makes it tough to be able to invest in the community. Makes it tough to invest in the
Got you. Got you. So I do want to ask a question because I learned this from you. So I seen a little bit ago you had named the street after somebody. If we can talk about this, you cool with that? So I seen it a while ago you named the street after someone. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know city council members had that power. So then as I'm reading through, like I said, I'm reading through the code and then I seen it ask for myself in writing, and then I look and I see the whole part. Is it Starachi? Starachi situation. Now, I really don't want to get too far into like the details of it, but I just wanted to like acknowledge the fact that you were the individual who put that on the agenda, and I wanted to know like why. First of all, why was that something that you thought would be, like is something that we should do here?
I mean, I'm a rep. I was a state runner-up rep when I went to the Liverpool Boat Scholarship, uh, Lindenwood University. Uh, that was my and then I coached, and we coached some. I coached some good kids coming through,
Okay.
and Carter's accomplishment, like not only is that the greatest college wrestling accomplishment that ever happened to wrestling, it's never going to be replicated. So that's the kind of stuff like when we were talking about what it is that gets someone street dedication. You could demonstrate. You named one after Tom Hoffman as well.
Hmm.
You've got an 83-year life of serving a neighborhood. Let's name the street.
Right.
If you walk on the moon, let's name the street.
Right.
Like there's certain things that are walk on moon kind of moments. Gold medal in the Olympics, winning more national championships than anyone ever could. Uh, in Carter's career, he has 4 losses. 2 of them are sorry, Dave. Um, he's 2 losses that he avenged and 2 that were injury fault.
Hmm.
So we got guys that they can't replicate that.
Right.
It's amazing. I was excited to see him go. And when we talk about putting it on the agenda, anything can be put on the agenda with a city council member sponsoring it and a second one.
Okay.
The council president gets to organize. So once I kind of figured that out, and that's something we learned early on.
Right.
You put whatever you want on that agenda. You just need a first and a second and approval from the solicitor. He's just supposed to determine whether or not it's legal.
Right.
So I put it on the agenda. We each get 2. I'm using my one, and this gave me my second one. I only got a few months left to use it, and that's I expect it to pass. I've never seen one fail.
So let me slow that down. So is 2 per term? So let's say you done multiple terms. Do you bank them or do you have to use the 2?
No, yeah, you got to use them by the end of the time.
And so there's been an opportunity for this to have happened before in the past, for other individuals. Because like I said, I know some streets have been renamed. I didn't necessarily know the intricacies of it until everything was media. So has other city council people named streets after people since you've been on?
Yeah, so we just created an ordinance. This is when I was president of council. This has been an ongoing issue as to how streets get named.
Okay.
So when I was president of council, I delegated it. I said, who's 2 members of council that can fix it?
Mhm.
So no true put up a standard. Like, I'll come up with standards. They came up with standards. You got to be there for 10 years or have served in a nonprofit for 25.
Okay.
And And then the way to restrict to figure out whether or not the accomplishment was noteworthy enough is that every councilman will only get 2. So this is a new process that we've only had 2 years now.
Okay.
So there's only been one street that came through that process. And then it cost money to put in a street sign. We never had an expense to go with it. So to keep everyone from applying, when I was president council, I had like 10 people say, hey, I want to have a street renamed. And you could just willy-nilly throw it in there. So now it comes with a $100 application fee. That sort of restricts the people that they got to know that they can get it through.
Right.
And then council chooses from the applicant. Like, clerk sends out an email saying, hey, we got an application, is anyone interested in sponsoring it? And you only get 2. So you got to be careful which ones you pick.
Okay, so people from the city get to make a request as far as fill out the application. Hey, let's say for instance, I'm me. I want a street to be named after my granddad. Fill out the application, I submit it in, and then you all have to pretty much decide if you're going to sponsor or not.
Yeah, one of our 2.
Right.
You got to throw in $100. So
right.
You better know if someone's going to say yes.
Right. So then, if let's say you sponsor it and that goes, if it doesn't go through, is that still counted as your, like, let's say for instance, the Carter thing doesn't go through?
Well, that's a great question. We're going to figure that out because mine failed.
Oh, so we don't so it's not 2 for sure. It's just 2 opportunities.
I've never seen it fail. That was the wild part about this.
Oh, okay.
It's never failed before.
Okay. All right. Cool. Because like when I seen it, I'll give my opinion on it. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Not just I just look at it like this. I feel like right now there's a lot of young people who are getting involved in wrestling and series. I feel like a young man to where it's just like it would provide some type of hope for young people to be like, oh wow, I can have my name on the sign too, or people who are in his generation will still be able to look at it like, I remember him. I went to school for him, and kind of like give us an opportunity to take pride in our city. Outside of his accomplishment, because it will never be done again. You know what I mean? We talk 5-time national championship wrestling. I played football, and I didn't want any parts of wrestling on the mat. That's a very tough sport, rigorous sport. So outside of that, I just looked at it like, wow, this would be a great opportunity. And then when I seen it didn't go through, I was surprised. I was honestly surprised.
Yeah, same.
But and then I seen like it got so there's they got a petition going on right now, like with the change.org thing. Will that have any impact on anything? So let's say for instance, if that thing gets signed 100,000 times and then the vote is still 3-3 locked, like what?
Well, that's nice. We got 7 people on council. I brought it forward in a meeting. Cassie said she'd be my 4th vote. Mel said make sure I had 4, and then she told me she was my 4, and then she reminded me Monday. She was like, hey, what do you mean? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
She's like, do I need to call in? I was like, I guess, but I don't know. It should pass. We don't really need you.
Oh.
And so she would have called in. I'm gonna be missing the next meeting. I'll put it back on the agenda now.
Okay. So it was an opportunity for her to call in and say yes, but you were like, yeah, we're not gonna need you.
Yeah, and then during caucus it was clear that we did need her. So then we were calling her and texting her.
She let it. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. So then, as far as like, so when you take it back to like originally when you decided to run for city council, like what pushed you in that direction?
Yeah. So I'm a pastor, and I pastor a church downtown. Right across from YMCA, all homeless people hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And within my denomination, I was at that point the head of our church startup, church multiplication board. And so we used to do like market research, trying to figure out what we growing. So we did like bring churches to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing market research on Longmont, Colorado, for example. So I said the 3 things I brought from Longmont. Longmont, they had citywide fiber optic internet in the a plant that in 1990.
Okay.
They became the fastest growing city in the nation in short order. They went from about 30,000 to about 130,000 in 20 years. So I looked at Longmont. That was one of the markets that we were researching, and we started a church there, the Well, I think it's called, a couple of years ago. So like I was in the middle of all this market research there, and it's just a matter of like looking at what's creating market growth, bringing that to Erie. So I was having a conversation with someone about that, and they're like, "That's something about a platform for city council.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should run." And we already knew that Kaz he was taking the controller's office. But maybe it was Mercy. I can't remember which one was first. It was Mercy. So I was looking at that position, and I applied for the appointment. And but at first I told him I wasn't using my social capital for his full crap. All this political stuff is full crap. And he just said, no, that's just what a lot of politicians are. We could just replace them. We could replace them with mindful people. Like maybe we could get this thing done.
Right.
And then you look at the platform, what have they been doing for years, and it's true. Like, you get good people in there, and you actually get stuff done. You get people that are aggressive, they just don't want to see things change and move forward. You're gonna, you're gonna not get things changing. They're not trying to paint you a picture of the future. They're trying to give you a photograph
Right.
of what's already been.
Right.
And I think we got some people coming in that are ready to paint a picture.
Oh, that's interesting that you said that. Because like I said, I've been learning a lot. The do's, the do nots, the who's, the not to's. So when you decided to hop into the run, like what were some of the most, I guess, eye-opening things without leaving any names, situations where just kind of like, oh wow, I didn't know that type of stuff happened, or were you very familiar with politics prior to running?
Oh, no, I wasn't. Um, like, if you're talking about like, West Wing type games, like, no, you know that people are, that everybody shakes hands behind your back.
Yeah,
like, you know that part. Like, that
no,
wasn't
I just
that
want
wasn't
that.
a surprise.
Yeah, surprise.
One of the things is I was talking to people early on, and one of the guys I was talking to early on, like we had kids that were friends with each other, and I was like, all right, well, can you help me with it? And they're like, yeah, I already got all my enemies. They're like, you don't want to bring my enemies in. Like if you're not associated with me, you can build more friendship.
Okay.
He's like, don't worry, like all my friends are good, but like you don't want to be known as my guy. I was like, oh, all right. So you keep telling everyone that you and I are tight. Like, you might want to stop doing that. I'm gonna ask. Like, a lot of people are not friends.
Listen, man, I'm not worried about that at all. Like I said, you can always encourage me when it comes. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's what I say. I'm always you pay homage. You know what I mean?
He's his own guy. Don't associate us too close. So that was one of the things that like I was able to build some good relationships very quickly with people that just understood that I was on the outside. And then people that I basically took any opportunity I got. Like for example, like my wife shared an office with a woman whose husband was a former elected official. So they set up a meeting for him. The wife set up a meeting for him. And I took meetings. I came in like, you're way behind. You don't have anything. Like you're off of it. And then like by the end of the hour, he's like, okay, here's everything I can help you. Here's a check. Here's a list of people to call, their cell phone numbers, anything you would help with. You're my guy.
Okay.
And
All right.
you build that for 6 years. Like you build that trust.
Absolutely. I'm learning that too as far as like building those relationships, and having conversations with people. You know what I mean? People picking your brain to kind of see if you know what you're doing or if you're really cut out for the job. But also like having conversations with people who aren't aware of what city council means or running for that seat or even being an elected official. Like how do you or how have you navigated some of those conversations to get people to understand that it is important to vote, it is important to be registered to vote and why they should vote? Some things that
Well, from now to May, um, like at May 5th, they got to all be registered.
right.
So you can keep pumping your friends, like those close to you. But they'll show up for primaries most likely. So like honestly, when I'm in election season, my focus is just talking to people I know are voters.
Right.
I'm not spending my time like. However, it's the time.
Right.
Like this is a 4-year game of you trying to build something.
Right.
And this part of the game, this is final wire. You're watching the clock. You're making sure you're efficient. Now I run an event called Porch Fest. Like I do stuff in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Porch Fest is awesome. And as a nonpartisan thing, we'll register everybody. Voter registration that every year.
Okay.
Like, and the people that go to that, are they beneficial to my election? If they know who I am, because they live in my neighborhood, and we get them to vote, like that's a good thing for me.
Right.
But it's also a good thing for everyone just to have an engaged electorate. Like I don't care which side voting for there. Like it's just good to have good people. People voting.
Right.
That's what you want.
Right.
It makes it more dynamic democracy.
All right. Yeah, and so then like even just having different conversations with people, people are like, oh, I'm excited you're running for city council. That's what's up. But like who's this guy? I've seen this guy Chuck all the time. So it's like you have a strategy of. I know you said you focus on the people who are voting, but it's starting to seem like you were everywhere. What's the strategy behind that, or what's the science behind that? Like, you're legitimately, I see people posting this stuff on Facebook. People are like, I've never voted before, but I know I'm gonna vote for this guy because Canada House. Nobody's ever come to house before, or somebody knocked on my door and it was a politician. Politicians usually don't come to to my house, and like people are like, I see this Chuck guy everywhere. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the it's election season, so I'm knocking on doors.
right.
That's um, if I knocked on the door, they're a voter unless somebody moves recently. You know, and then as far as posts, like I'm doing stuff.
Right.
I mean that's the thing. Like if you look, like when I came in and I said, hey, Chris, like that's gonna be the biggest economic driver that this
Mhm.
city's seen as a tool in the last next 30 years. This could be over $500 million.
Right.
You know, that's not something that city council was pushing up until I became president of it. It was not a priority. Home rule charter. We talked about this like 30 years ago. It was real brief in passing, and it was sort of like a spiteful thing. They wanted to change things to screw over certain guys in certain districts.
Mm.
Like it wasn't like, hey, we need to read. It was we need to mess back. I nobody was talking about
Right.
like what I'm doing.
Right.
You got to if you come in and you want. I'm not here for the attention. I'm getting attention because I'm doing stuff.
Gotcha.
So just do stuff. That's the easy part, man. You see me all over the place. I'm doing a lot.
And it makes sense. Yeah, I agree with you there. It's like I see you everywhere. Like, yeah, somebody's got to do it. So then even like with that, like if you transitioning from city council to like city controller, like what are some of the things that you think the city of Erie needs as far as like if you were to make there's some more things that we kind of push
Yeah.
from a
So
city councilman.
yes, when I talk about land use reform, I said there's 15 things on that. There's a lot of things you can do to address land use reform. So one of the first things I did was I passed a vacancy, so that vacant properties will hopefully keep them in. People that live in houses, keep them updated.
Right.
The vacancy and foreclosures were about 40,000 in revenue last year for the city, so it's also a revenue source. I'm hoping to see that be like 90,000 this year as we try to prioritize vacant houses, just like we prioritize on the foreclosed houses. So that was like
When you say the vacant houses, does the city of Erie actually own vacant property?
no. What I'm talking about is if you have a vacant property, you got to register it with the city for $2 million.
Oh, okay.
That way code enforcement knows it's vacant and can give it extra attention.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting you sit there and just oh, I seen that. I did see that.
So I did that 2 years ago.
Okay.
Like so that was like the first one. So I came in and I had like, a whole slate of these types of issues. We did the short-term rental ordinance. We did a zoning reform. There's no substantial zoning reform in 24 years. I'm a primary.
Okay.
Update the quality of like housing. I wasn't a sponsor on the ordinance in 23 that dealt with tenants. It dealt with domestic issues and gave tenants 60 days notification if their rents were being increased,
Mhm.
so they didn't have to make a decision on the spot.
Right.
A couple different things to try to. I wasn't the primary sponsor on that, but I was the president of council and I met with the Park Association. Yeah, so like just doing these things to increase the housing prices. I made through most of my list, but like there is continued tools that we haven't implemented yet, and we've had a lot of changes in that department. We've got a new code enforcement manager who's going to be taking over this year.
Mhm.
He's currently in the office, but there's a transition period right now. So there's going to be a time where the council is going to need to continue to push that,
Right.
but it's not going to happen until next year. And so that's when you can come in. Yeah, hopefully everything goes to all of
Right.
our plans.
Right. Hopefully so. Hopefully so. So then, like, so I guess I'm just gonna ask you some questions about some of the things that I've studied because I also noticed that as I was looking through it, it mentioned something about board appointments. As far as like city council members have being able to appoint individuals to boards, mayor being able to appoint individuals to board and stuff like that. So like, I guess, I mean, how do I form this? Like, how does that pretty much based on the people that you appoint to boards, like how does that have an impact on the city as a whole, like as far as like identifying the right person to appoint to the
Here's how nerdy I get with this stuff, right? Uh, Title Title 53, Chapter 56, Line 10, subsection A of the General Municipal Authority. That says that the governing body of the city makes all its appointments. The General Municipal Authority. So the General Municipal Authority, that's a ton of power in the city. Now, that act split off a couple other authorities, Convention Center Authority and Port Authority. They made those more regionalized because they didn't want the city having all the power over those. The governor, the mayor, they make appointments to those. The CRIS Authority in the Senate Bill 654, page 21, right on the bottom there, they explain that they changed how the CRIS Authority works. So the state legislators have all the power, not just in Erie. And so that had otherwise been a general municipal authority. You get these specific areas where you don't have appointments.
Right.
But that's one of the things where, like parking, sewer authority, like some of these things, when you look at the city's budget, it's only 100,000. Then there's all these authorities that manage millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
The sewer authority's got some major construction projects coming up that are going to be like, 30% of our budget. And I don't have any control over it,
Right.
except by the people that I appoint.
Right.
When you're making those appointments, you try to find people to kind of balance out the board. You get some advice. Airport authorities one, like, we have some different issues there. We've lost some flights. We're trying to find some very specific, suited people to be able to come up with solutions. They are their own counsel.
Gotcha.
So airport was a big one recently. I think we did a good job with some points from sewer, water authority. These are large regional resources.
Right.
You're gonna have control over who's leading them.
Right. So is there like a certain number of appointments that a council person gets, or is it like whatever board you oversee?
So it's a council president. I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a councilman, 30, 40 years ago, all the appointments for a whole year.
Like what?
Yeah. It's so sort of legendary. I think it wasn't Magnolia, but it was back in that era. So guys still talk about that a little bit. But usually if you have an appointment and it's up for reappointment, you get to determine whether or not they are reappointed. If the person's limited, like term limited,
Mm-hmm.
then you sort of get to pick the next one.
Okay.
If you've held that. So like there's certain guys that, there's 3 term limits for a certain authority, right? And then I come on council and they're up for their 3rd term. So I can either reappoint them or replace them.
Okay.
I'm probably going to reappoint them. Like, because they seem like they do the job well. The authority director has a lot of respect for them. So you reappoint them. And then when you're up 4 years later and now they're term limited, it's still your appointment. And now you pick someone different. I have replaced some, but that was usually, there was a streak where we had a lot of people doing 2 or 3 of the same appointment. Like one guy's on the zoning and then he's also on, and so I kind of talk to them. I'd be like, hey, which one do you really like?
Okay.
I'm going to replace one of these in the next 2 years.
Okay.
Let me know which one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's always been a focus. Yeah, I think you get the new appointments, they get assigned by the president. You get to pick whether or not you place them, reappoint them, and then if the person that reappointed them is gone, the council president usually just gives it to a liaison or someone that's associated with that authority.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was curious because I was like, I said, man, I'm gonna continue to say like as I was doing research, I'm just like kind of looking at it like, okay, because I'm speaking about like I don't know everything and I can't speak for all demographics and population of people. I feel like you have the right champions on the team with you and you put them in the right places, you'll be able to have an influence over some of the things that are going on as long as you have like solid people around you. And those people could be advocating for their population individuals in that space. So I was curious to know like how all of that works, as far as the appointments, how it has an influence on decisions that are being made within the period outside of those things. That makes sense.
Yeah, and you hear it at the end when we do our committee reports.
Mhm.
So like, if you have good appointments on an authority, like there's certain members of our council that don't go to their authority meetings
Mhm.
because they know they can just call Joe and get
Right.
get an update. Like, and then they bring out their next report. I go to mine for the most part. This year I have pretty easy. I gotta go to the airport authority meeting. The rest of the stuff I can kind of do. But I don't call it in for the airport. I go to those meetings.
Mhm.
And then you get to here's one funny thing. You'll figure this out. People listening at home might enjoy this. Timers, they know which authorities we get free lunch.
So to just hang with them.
They try to get the appointment to get free lunch. So then when you go to your meeting, at least you get free lunch.
Oh, I get it.
Like you get a zoning hearing board meeting, you gotta go sit through like legal hearings, sometimes for like 3 hours. And those are rough. You go to a port authority meeting, you don't have any appointments on that board. You just keep up with the news and you get free lunch because you buy lunch every time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 4 of them: sewer, port, convention, and airport. They get you lunch.
I have to take note of that. I have to keep that in mind. But then so like with the election, this upcoming primary, I mean, maybe it seems like a big deal because I'm involved in it myself, but I think like there's a lot of people who are trying to step out of their comfort zone, who are running, who are trying to, I guess, like shift the paradigm of leadership in Erie? Like, what's your thoughts as far as like I want to generation thing, like as far as like young people or younger people stepping up to try to become leaders within the city? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah. So when I ran in 21, we got treasurer, controller, mayor, and 7 councilmen, right? In 2021, when I'm running, how many were in their 70s?
How many?
Out of 10, 5.
Okay,
Youngest one was 54,
okay.
right? So you got that sort of dynamic happening in 2021. Well, look at what's happened since then.
Mhm,
You know, since then we've had 4 members of council under the age of 40.
mhm.
Jasmine, myself, Tyler, and Susanna have all been on council under the age of 40.
Right.
That's a big pivot from 54 being the youngest. And honestly, the youngest in 2021, Keys and Kevin were both the same age. Like, Teresa's retiring.
Mhm,
And retiring.
mhm.
So that's, if the youngest people are retiring just 4 years later in their professional life, that says where we're at. With this upcoming election, we've got Mr. Witherspoon, who's leading council. He's 80 right now. We got he's running for controller and he's currently in council. He turned 79 in June.
Mhm.
Like some of these guys are moving in a different direction. And they're being replaced not with 60-year-olds, but with 30-year-olds.
Right.
What do you do?
30, 39,
39.
39, yeah.
When's your birthday? You'll be
March,
40 when you get in?
I just turned
Oh, you just
39.
turned there. All right.
Yeah.
We'll have another person. Like, if you win, that's another person under the age of 40. They'll be taken off. Well-educated people, master's degrees, like professional. Um, this is a good thing for the city.
Mhm.
When you look at the votes that are broken down, you can see that people came in doing their homework are moving the needle, and a lot of people I think are doing their homework a lot harder.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with that. Because growing up here, just seeing different things, it just always seemed like this was the norm. This is what happens. Like that person's gonna get the seat or these people are, and it seemed like you had to be a certain age and look a certain way to run. But then as I've got older and got myself more involved in things that are happening in the city and in the community, it's kind of like, oh, I have to say so. You know what I mean? Like, and I can have somewhat of an influence, but I think it took a while for me to learn and understand it. Like, when did you realize that you had a say so in that with your opinions and your thoughts were important enough to where it's just like, you know what, I'm doing it.
Yeah, like in politics, that part was easy. I mean, that stuff was established in my career. I was like a 23-year-old associate at a church,
Okay.
and I'm looking to pastor close to retirement. I was like the number 2 guy there, and you'd have to be into his office to get advice as to how you can handle something. But they're like, I'm here for you to get paid. Like,
Right.
I was like, maybe I can lead. So
Mhm.
I kind of had that stuff happen in my life in my mid-20s that led me to being a lead pastor, starting a church. So when I was able to pivot into politics, like, I didn't have the qualms about leading. I'd already been leading for a while, and
Right.
that's one of the things. Let me also say this: like, I've talked to people running for office, and I've asked, like there was this one conversation I had with somebody that ran, and I was like, he was like, I want to run for the neighborhood. I'm like, cool. What are you doing in the neighborhood now? Like, how are you leading the neighborhood now? And they didn't have an answer.
Right.
Like if that's the case, like, then you're just daydreaming about doing something.
Got
Like
you.
like don't hope.
Right.
But when guys, and yourself being an example, like when guys come in and they're like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm leading with, like, that's fine, man. You should be able to confidently move forward leading. There shouldn't be a surprise to you when an opportunity comes up. And I think right now we're seeing as a generation needs leadership. I think the opportunity is there. So people that are currently leading in the community
Mhm.
are really positioning themselves hopefully, in the city in a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's very important. Like when I think about like some of my friends, some of my peers or people I just grew up with, um, some of us are realizing it. I wish a lot more of us would realize it. That it's kind of like we're in late 30s. Like we're pretty much like the elders now. Like, we were younger. We were 18, 19. Like it was people our age who were like stepping in these positions. Um, and I'm not exactly sure like what it's gonna take for people to kind of understand that. But it is good to see a lot more younger people like stepping up in these roles, trying to be leaders and trying to get into these positions of power. If there was anything that you could say to like encourage more people to get involved, even if it's just registering to vote or coming out and voting, because like I was one of those ignorant people who's like, no, my vote doesn't matter. Yeah, I've still voted, but my vote doesn't matter. Like when it comes to local elections, like what could you say or what would you say, especially with you already being in an official election, when you heard somebody?
You know, and that's the thing is that, especially with these elections, like if anyone's looking to get involved and know where their voice is heard, like they get involved with your campaign, right?
Mhm.
Like, and then they could see how much access they have to influence things in the city. Like you could just get involved with this stuff real fast. I got people knocking on doors for me, college kids knocking on doors for me. Like it's nice, man. And when they see something happening, they call me. Like, hey, that was cool. That was, hey, I got this problem in my neighborhood. Like, you get that kind of access.
Right.
You gotta be doing something. You gotta be serving. Like you guys will sit there and just like spend all the time on social in the basement or whatever. Like I don't got time for that, man.
Right.
I'm not wasting my time with those.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then even like again going back to some of the older guys, like who are some of the people who kind of like helped you along the way? Like once you got the seat, or some of the people that you were able to take some of that political advice from, help you like make those decisions and to stand firm in some of the decisions that you.
Yeah, that was one of the things when Jazz and I got in at the same time. We actually like we reached out to one of the people on council and we thought that we were going to be kind of like led in that way, and then we kind of got surprised. Like Brzezinski ended up actually being like someone who's like, here's the people you need to meet, like first thing. Here's people who influence me. Here's and so he opened a lot of those doors for us early on. So I was, you know, that was one of the ones where I ran against him in 19. So I kind of looked at someone that giant play type thing more than a support. And he came in real quick, helping out. So that was, and like Witherspoon, like, we voted against each other on two big things last week. We're going to Five Iron for lunch on Wednesday. And golf. Like, you just leave that at the and go hang out. I'd have lunch with Schember about once a month when I was president of council. I probably had lunch with him 20 times since I've been on. We usually just talk about family stuff, so. And then I with a bunch of old guys on Friday, like Pat Kemp and was like 92, and we get together, gives him corners. Fred Rush goes the whole time, and it works in Julio, Rich administration. And one of the big things is like these guys that have that kind of experience, like almost anything they have to say.
Right.
Like that's really like always, um, and even when they're my critics, like let my critics be my coaches. Like I'll use it. But people aren't shy about opinions. So you can speak them out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely when you say that, as far as like having those conversations with different people and like people share their opinions, learning how people are more reluctant to share their opinions with you now, and sometimes it seems like it to trigger me, but also to see if I know what I'm talking about. And then you also have some people who will share their opinions where they have no idea what they're talking about themselves, and it's just kind of like, how do I respond to that, or do I respond? So how do you deal with that? Because I be seeing you on Facebook, you know what I mean? And you'll comment with some folks, and then some folks you won't comment with. So like right now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out what to respond to, or how to respond to certain things, or what not to respond to. Like, so what works for you when it comes to responding to opinions via social media or even in person?
Yeah. So you got your masters. What would you get it in again?
Organizational leadership.
All right. So like, did you have some sort of like organization? So did you have like some sort of like ethnography research?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah. So like you get to a certain level where you understand how to identify like credible sources.
Okay.
Right? I got my master's is a 3-year master's, and I got a couple years on my doctorate. You learn how to find credible sources, and if it's a credible source, like you can engage that.
Okay.
If someone's in there like, no, but I see your AP News thing that cites like incredible things, but I got this thing from YouTube. Like I'm not actually wasting my time on them.
Gotcha.
Like I'm not doing it.
Gotcha.
I'm happy to dismiss ignorance.
Okay.
If somebody is engaged enough that they don't want to be ignorant and they just need more information, like I'll answer a question.
Okay.
But I'm not going to engage ignorant.
Mm.
There's a difference between like not knowing and ignorant.
Right. So then what about, I guess, would you look at being antagonized and ignorance is the same thing?
Yeah. And hey, let me also say, I'll engage some ignorant people if I think they're funny. Like even if they're busting my balls, like we talk about that cruel. Like, if anything, man, I'm slouching in his chair too much before my sit up.
Right.
You're reading the comments on here.
Right.
That's Dave. He's one of the people that but sometimes it's funny. like, that's the thing is, like, I'll engage someone that at least entertains me,
Okay.
or if the person's ignorant enough that I can entertain myself with it. Sometimes I do that a little too much, and then back there, messages that get rid of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do got guys who are telling you when to chill and when not to chill.
Yeah, I got 92-year-old guys on Facebook yelling at me all the time for, like, engaging people too much.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I got a phone call from a guy. He called me and I'm like, "Yo, I'm glad you called me." I didn't even know how to like I didn't know what to do in this
Yeah,
situation. I'm like, I just answered the best way I could see fit, but so I was curious to know that as well because then like what I'm learning now, like I said, is the questions are coming.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's like some of them are coming in the inbox, some of them are coming in the comment section, and then some of them people are like legitimately just posting on the wall. And I'm like, I don't know, should I ignore this and speak to this? Like, how would that look for me? So sometimes I find myself like asking people questions like, "Yo, do I respond to every comment, or will it look bad if I don't respond to this one, but I respond to this one in the same thread?" Like, because I just now I'm to the point now to where you never know if somebody's trying you or not. And I'm not one of those people that you. I don't. I'm not one of those people who likes to be played with words.
Yeah. You know, as long as the person, like, didn't have someone that died or, like, something like that, and the care emoji that on Facebook, care reaction, I almost never use that in Facebook. They don't have a sarcasm button on Facebook, so, like, like, if you say someone died, like, and I hit care, like, don't take that sarcastically, like,
Right,
"Oh, man, that's
right,
sorry," like, you can't hit like or love on that,
right.
but if you post something like, "Oh, well, this," and then I hit care, almost 100% it's 'cause I'm impatient, like, actually addressing it. I'm saving my words. I'm just being
You catch a lot of heat for that?
uh,
Like behind the scenes, like who like with this Pat? Is Pat like, "Hey, Chuck, come on, man."
I don't think he knows about facial Facebook reactions. Yeah, I'll tell you, yeah, this is personality thing,
Okay,
probably. Like, this is politics. You need 51% of the vote.
right,
Like, that's it. In this race, because it's 6 people running for 4 seats, like, it's a little bit higher than that.
right,
But you don't even have to be their first choice. You can be their 4th choice.
right.
So I usually look at these things, and sometimes I just straight up, I got vote. It's an open tab on my computer all the time. I can see whether or not the person's opinion means
Um,
anything to me.
got you.
If you're a Republican from Harbor Creek, I don't value your opinion. I get a lot of them.
Mhm,
And I don't feel bad about
mhm.
people not liking you. That's something where but if you really want to make sure everyone likes you, you're gonna be very effective.
Right,
At
right, right. Yeah, no, I think it's not more of a liking me thing, it's more of a being political, but, wasn't that politically correct? Yeah, said that people are watching, man, like, I'm being followed. It's to the point now to where I go to places I frequently go to, and I see somebody who was, like, in my comments or my likes, and they just happen to be here. I was at the gym one I go to the gym around the same time every single day, so pretty much you know the environment from the paper. And I seen a person like, "Whoa, what are you doing here? I've seen you somewhere. I know where I've seen you at." So now it's to the point now to where it's just like being watched everywhere I go. I heard so many great things about you. And I post a lot on social media too. So I was just curious to know like how do you work around that?
yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin. So, like, if I say it on Facebook, I'll say it to people's face.
Right.
Like, that's pretty standard. And then, I also I don't feel the need to please everyone. My wife's more, she wants to make sure, there's 49% out there that dislike you. She wants to try to, like, make sure that they flip. And I'm like, "God, let's just make sure my 51 is strong."
Okay.
Like, it's a different attitude. And I don't have to please everybody because some of them are idiots. Like, I mean, that's, like, I'm not gonna condescend to that.
Right.
So, if I'm passing good policies, like, I make sure that my vote's in and I say some vote. Um, I'm pretty comfortable with all that. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not sure if I'm good advice on
No, it's cool. No, you answering my question.
you talk about, like, politically correct. Make sure you're authentic.
Right.
People don't give a shit about political
Right.
correctness. Like, they wanna see that you're authentic.
Got you.
If you're authentically an asshole, they may still cancel you.
Right.
But, like, that's because you're an asshole, not because you're not politically correct.
Right. See, that's my thing too. So when it comes to the authenticity and then being like, you know what I mean? You can't just say F everybody.
Yeah.
But there's a way to say F everybody without making it seem so hard or breaking. I guess that's what I'm working with somebody who's helping me do that as well as far as like my communication skills and how I deliver messages. But yeah, I was just curious to know how that works for you and like what do you have going on with that? But but outside of that though, like you got any questions or anything for me? We about 50 minutes in. We closing on an hour here, so I'm just curious to know if you had any questions for me or anything that you wanted to leave on the interview or drop before we get out of here.
You're doing research. I know you're doing your homework. You're reading the city code. You're reading the ordinances. You're reading the budget. I think you've been posting stuff about the budget. I then gave you like here. Okay, that's what our 5 year says. Look at this. Actually, I think our budget would be a home rule charter is gonna be fine.
Mhm.
Like we got a little bit of a property tax next year. The following year we'll have a little again, and then shift to home. Like home rule. And we can fix this quick. I actually think for the most part, but while you're looking at the stuff that governs us, the budget, charter, the ordinances, what are you looking at outside of us to try to like bring stuff to you?
So I've been having conversations with Mr. Rush. He's definitely been on me about this because he's like, you need to start researching Philly, you need to start researching Harrisburg, you need to start researching Pittsburgh to see some of the different things that they've brought into their city, and how it's helped them impact. I've had conversations with Drew Lighting, and there's a city in Georgia, Macon. I don't know if it's Macon or New Macon as far as like how they've increased things with their economic development and stuff like that. But I'm in Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati is something like a sister city to Erie. So just like researching different cities, seeing like their growth, because I know we've been on a decline of population, so we're now the fifth largest city in the state. So just like looking at different things, like how people are retaining young people, how people are retaining some of the college students in those cities to kind of increase the population and add value to like what they have going on. So it hasn't really been too much or too intricate as far as like outside and what we can do to bring it in here, but just different cities, and then having conversation with Mr. Rush about different opportunities that we can bring in to get very to be innovative, to be upcoming, and how people. That's why I asked the question before. It's like how people rely on other citizens who aren't elected officials to help them build and boost the area that they live in. Is there something that I should be looking for?
No, I'm just curious though, because if you give me something you've been researching, maybe I can just do it in the next 8 months, and then I.
Yeah, you sound very vague with that. I'm learning how the game goes. But I did. When I was thinking about that, I did have a question for it. I was thinking about. Oh yeah, no. So this is something that I did see, and I was asked about this. So I know that people who work for this city, they have to live within a 15-mile radius, correct? So
From City Hall.
from City Hall. So my question is, was the water considered in that?
I think you're allowed to live on the water, like in a boat. You're talking about Canada? What are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying. So when you think the 15-mile radius from City Hall, like where does the water fall into that radius?
So you can live on the water. That's the thing. But
Oh, so that's why it is. Okay, well that makes sense. Then.
no, I'm being mostly cheap.
Okay.
The issue with that is the 15-mile radius is pretty common for a lot of cities to put something along the lines of that.
Mhm.
But because we have the water, that cuts the options for these people down in half.
So is it half?
It ends up being half because you can't live. You really aren't going to live 15 miles into the lake.
That's what I was saying. I was wondering the distance from the City Hall to the water to how much space we got.
Yeah, so, basically that 15-mile radius it cuts out Edinburgh.
Right.
Like you can live in Summit, you can live in Waterford, you can live in Harbor Creek, Fairview, but it cuts out Edinburgh. Right now, because the housing market is so tight, and because we just hired 21 cops, like we just expanded that pretty dramatically, and now they're all hoping to buy houses, and now they're looking for houses. They want to live in areas that don't have police because the taxes are lower. Just kidding. I know some of you do. Those are the ones I like, the ones that live here. And then the issue is that then you do want to get out to these other areas and these differentiated markets. The difference between Edinburgh, Fairview, and Harbor Creek is nothing.
Right.
They're all
Right.
but there's not that many houses left in any of them.
Right.
So people want to be able to live there. So I'd actually proposed an ordinance. It was my last meeting with the president about a year and a half ago to expand that to 15 miles from the border and within Erie County. If you go 15 miles from the border, you start getting a little bit of Ohio, New York, and Crawford County. If you just make it the entire county, you get Corey,
Right.
which is kind of a pain in the butt commute.
Right.
But people might want to do it, and we don't want them to.
Right.
So trying to find some like ways, but I also don't want to give excuses and make it easier to not live in the city. The ordinance failed.
Right.
I think Susanna and I, we didn't see the vote for it, if I recall correctly. But I want to find different ways to balance that. We talked about like, I don't really. If someone wants to live in Edinburgh or they want to live in Mill Creek, it's all the same to me.
Right.
Like they're not paying taxes.
Right.
I don't care if they're commuting 3 miles or 1
Right.
or 3 miles or 15. Because, you know, what's the difference, man? Like when the chief lives in Mill Creek, we don't need. I don't care if he says they can't live in Edinburgh.
Right.
Um,
No, yeah, you got a point there. Wow, I didn't think about that.
yeah. So, but the ones that live in the city, so I'd like to incentivize them living in the city. And there was talk about like maybe letting some of the cops like bring patrol cars home
Hmm.
in the city. Don't bring that stuff to Harbor Creek.
Right.
And finding different ways to incentivize living in the city while also loosening up the bounds so that they get basically cops and firefighters that want to have the access to Edinburgh. And a couple of the teams, there's that's the one spot that they're trying to get left in.
Okay.
It's fine with it, but I want to find ways to encourage them to be in the city.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand. I had some different thoughts myself about all of that, and I'm like, I don't know if I should ask that question or put that out there because it might rub some people the wrong way. As far as like salaries, like should it be less salary if you live out the city because the people who live in the city are already paying those taxes for the city, or is that something that could happen? And it's historical. These are just I'm just saying my thoughts out loud because I don't want to get too deep into that, but I was just curious, like, would those be some alternatives? Would those be some options, like the cops who actually live in the city to make more than just don't live in the city?
And that comes in
Right, I was just about
contract,
to
which
say,
is
yeah,
then outside city council
right,
control. That is the mayor's office. But finding different incentives to put on that, opportunities for education, like different things like rewards. And then certain positions are, city council technically has more control of the promotion stuff than what we actually have.
mm-hmm,
There's some, and you can see this in certain offices. Like if you go into the treasury office, everyone's a city resident.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's union jobs that fit into, but everyone's a resident. And there's certain jobs that are non-bargaining and can be promoted without, like, do we promote people who are not residents? And we may be seeing this with our city clerk because she's a city resident. We've always had a city resident as a clerk, and she's due to retire in the next 3 years.
mm-hmm,
So you might actually, if you win, you might have to pick a new clerk.
mm-hmm.
The deputy clerk doesn't win the city, legislator who doesn't win the city. That's the usual pipeline are not city residents. City resident. That ends up being a tricky thing.
Okay.
But those are things that I believe that we can do as a city council in the administration and different elected offices to encourage city residency.
Uh, Well, here, this is my last question for you. And then I'll leave it up to you last couple of minutes if you want to say anything or not. But like, so have you ever had any people like approach you in a negative sense to where you felt like I need to be more careful of my surroundings and be ready to protect myself type of thing? Is it that serious as a city councilman? And I'm asking for my own, not
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, so yeah, those things happen not from city council.
that's what I meant. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I mean, like I pastor a church full of people that are homeless and have mental health issues.
okay,
Like I've had people knock on my doors, and I'm stopping me to protect myself and my family. Like, and I'm pretty comfortable in those situations.
okay.
So that I was just fine with that situation. Um,
So not necessarily a city council person like, oh, I'm gonna throw a shoe at you while you're up here, type of thing.
yeah, no, I mean we've got some heated things, and we've had some heated walks out. I
Uh-huh.
think you've been to some of those
Uh-huh.
meetings. Like I just like they all go through the metal detector, and there's no metal involved, and I'm real comfortable.
Okay.
You know,
All right. Okay.
I mean, I presume you kind of have that same confidence with that. And I've had some colleagues make some.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you remember that meeting?
Yeah. I was. Yeah.
I've had some colleagues. I was out of town. Make comments about them hitting a heavy bag or a steam bag or uh, John Wayne. You respect your elders, respect your betters.
Mm.
And then one, another council colleague said that they wanted to start learning how to hit just in case. I just got all my shirts tailored at that point.
Yeah. I should keep myself fit, man. But yeah, like I said, we've been going. We're closing in on an hour, so we're gonna keep it short. We're not keep it short. We'll keep it at an hour. I don't know if you got any comments or anything you want to say, any closing remarks you got to say. Let us know where you at on the ballot, when to vote, all of that good stuff. Drop all of your everything that you got to drop on it.
Yeah, I'm number 3 on the ballot. I've been either the finance chair or president of council all my years on council. I've saved about $10 million. Treasury management, shutting down projects, um, changing accounting on certain things. I mean, I've been a dog about that stuff. So if you own $100,000 on a house, that's about $300 in taxes. So that's $100,000 assessed house. That's those numbers are big. So I think I'm the best candidate for it. If I wasn't the best candidate for it, I wouldn't run for it. Just to be real frank about it. I'm not looking for the job or the salary or anything like that. Like I'm looking to help. So yeah, number 3 on the ballot. Look for me. You can consider this an endorsement for
Oh,
Deontay.
there we go. There we go.
I'm excited to be working with you next year if everything works out.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate all the viewers. Make sure that you all are registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, you need to register by May 5th. The primary election is May 20th, 2025. Make sure you come out. Chuck said he's going to be number 3 on the ballot, and I will be number 5 on the ballot. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. We're going to see the show.